Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Emily Hiles, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Corporal Angela Reid. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial and students on behalf of St Joseph's Catholic Primary School from Gilgandra, New South Wales. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where family and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Private Bertie Cecil Harvey. Bertie Harvey was born on the 19th of May in 1891 in Old Junee. He was the eldest of 16 children born to Robert Harvey, a farmer, and his wife Amy. Bertie grew up on the family farm at Coombanning near Temora and was educated at the local public school. As a young adult, he worked alongside his father and siblings on the farm. When the First World War broke out in 1914, he was working as a railway porter in Urana. Bertie Harvey enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force on the 6th of August 1915. He was assigned to the 13th Reinforcements of the 4th Battalion with the rank of private and began a short period of training in Australia. He embarked for active service in December that year and sailed from Sydney on the troop ship Aeneas. In Egypt, Harvey joined other new recruits and veterans from the recently abandoned Gallipoli campaign. In February 1916, Harvey was transferred to the 2nd Battalion. He trained with them near Cairo before embarking for the Western Front. After disembarking in Marseille, they headed for the border of France and Belgium, where had been the site of heavy fighting since 1914. They spent some weeks in training, trench maintenance and routine duty in the lines before being drawn into the fighting around Pozières in June of 1916. Harvey's division captured the village and desperately clung to its gains under extremely heavy shell fire and counterattacks. By the time the 1st Division was relieved, some weeks later, it had suffered some 5,285 casualties. Harvey's unit moved to the comparatively quiet Belgian front for a period of rest and training. They returned to the Somme as a bitterly cold winter began to set in. Harvey spent the last days of November at a school of instruction and returned to his unit before the lines in early December. At some point, Harvey was arrested for disobeying orders given by a superior officer. He stood trial at a field general court-martial on the 8th of December 1915 and found guilty. He was sentenced to 5 years penal servitude. This sentence was later suspended, however, and Harvey was permitted to return to his unit to serve his sentence at a later date. In the new year, Harvey was again sent to a training school behind the lines. He remained there until the end of February 1917, rejoining his unit as the enemy began a strategic withdrawal to the fortified Hindenburg Line. The German retreat was eagerly followed by Allied units. In advancing, these units were confronted by well-prepared, rear-guarded defences and booby-trapped towns, which resulted in a series of bloody clashes between Allied forces and the enemy. Harvey's unit was drawn into the fighting in May, during the Allies' second attempt to capture the village of Bullecourt in the enemy's new front line. An attack on the village the month before was absolute carnage. Under heavy machine gun and artillery fire, and without the expected support of tanks, Australian units had suffered over 3,000 casualties in one day. At 3:45 a.m. on the 3rd of May, Harvey and his comrades headed towards the enemy trenches. Just minutes later, the enemy opened their own artillery barrage on the advancing troops, causing many casualties and forcing them back. Harvey, who was acting as a stretcher bearer, was hit by shell fire at some point during the attack and was badly wounded in the head, shoulders and legs. One of his comrades came to his aid and carried Private Harvey to the nearby dressing station. He received medical attention there for several days, but he died of his wounds on the 7th of May in 1917. Private Harvey's comrades buried him in a nearby cemetery, but his final resting place was lost during subsequent fighting in the region. Today, he is commemorated on the Australian Memorial at Villiers-Bretonneux. Private Harvey was 25 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right amongst almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Bertie Cecil Harvey, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and for the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of our director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support of the Memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening.